Prince Harry's latest chapter opens with a sharp jolt. Politicians in Westminster are pushing to rein in the power of royal titles, while tax officials reportedly press for a payment deadline that doesn't care about fame. No velvet rope, no private corridor, just a name in bold print and a date circled in red. The message from London lands hard. If you step away from duty and still parade the badge, expect scrutiny. If the numbers don't match, expect a bill. Those two currents have now collided in public, and the splash is loud enough for Hollywood to hear. The title question hits first because it strikes the image that fuels influence. Supporters of a proposed change argue that public honor should travel with public service, not publicity tours. Critics call the move theatrical. Yet even the possibility of removing Duke of Sussex from introductions changes how rooms feel in Los Angeles. A title isn't just tradition, it's leverage. It greases deals, sweetens speaking fees, and turns ordinary meetings into headline bookings. Without it, the pitch sounds different, leaner, less gilded, more like any other celebrity presentation in a town where glow is currency and attention is a rented commodity. Then comes the money, and money talks in bold. Reports claim HM Revenue and Customs has presented a substantial bill tied to UK-linked income, with chatter about a 3-day window and a figure near $800,000. Those specifics are unverified, but the principle stands. Tax letters don't blink. If a balance is due, they expect payment, and if not, they expect evidence that holds up. That's why this story feels bigger than gossip. You can debate opinions forever. You can't debate a due date stamped across page 1. Fail to meet it, and you trade whispers for consequences. What makes the squeeze brutal is the brand math of the last few years. Since the move to California, Harry's pitch has blended independence with proximity to the crown. Not a working royal, yet still a prince, still a duke, still a voice from inside the gates. That hybrid status turned podcasts into confessions and documentaries into access. It also invited a question that refuses to fade. Can someone keep the glow of an institution they challenged? A live debate in Parliament, even as a proposal, signals that patience with the hybrid approach is wearing thin. Inside Westminster, the phrasing has sharpened. A handful of MPs now say publicly what many once implied with careful coding. If you exit the job, you can't use the uniform to sell tickets abroad. Others warn that rewriting rules around historic styles is complicated and best handled slowly. Either way, the conversation has moved from tabloids to transcripts, and once something hits the official record, it stops being rumor and becomes process. Process moves at its own speed, but it tends to end cleanly, with a yes, a no, or a change that can't be undone with a statement. Meanwhile, the internet treats the saga like a Saturday match. Hashtags trend, not a duke, pay your taxes, Sussex scam, and memes fall like confetti. Social noise doesn't decide law or liability, but it sets the weather in which companies make decisions. Executives watch volatility. Risk becomes hesitation. Hesitation turns a quick phone call into a week of emails. Options that used to feel automatic quietly expire. In a business where momentum is everything, mixed signals are poison, and right now the signals are undeniably mixed. Industry chatter mirrors that mood. Rumors suggest partners are pausing to reassess timelines and optics. Entertainment is allergic to confusion, and the combination of a possible title fight with a reported tax dispute screams confusion. Nobody wants to premiere a glossy series while trending topics shout about audits and deadlines. It isn't fatal, but in a business that runs on meetings and momentum, a pause can feel like a verdict, even when it's only a calendar shuffle prompted by nervous counsel. Then there's the silence from home. Meghan Markle, usually precise with messaging, hasn't jumped into the scrum. People read that quiet as distance, calculation, support out of sight, or simply a refusal to feed the fire. It could be all of the above. In a storm, one sentence can multiply into 100 headlines, and sometimes the smartest headline is none. But silence becomes its own storyline, and in the absence of quotes, speculation expands to fill whatever space is left open. Behind the curtain, the whispers widen. Observers talk about accountants, expense categories, and charitable filings. To be clear, that remains speculation until officials confirm anything. The pattern, however, is familiar. When one authority starts asking questions, other offices review their ledgers. That doesn't automatically imply wrongdoing. It often means ordinary verification made extraordinary by fame. The larger truth stands either way. Notoriety multiplies scrutiny, and royal notoriety multiplies it again. The cost structure is a character of its own. Montecito is stunning and expensive. Security is essential and constant. Staff and travel chew through any budget. Add production delays, development limbo, and the slow boil nature of entertainment revenue. And cash flow behaves like surf. Up, down, sideways. People assume wealth equals liquidity. Most of the time it equals assets, obligations, and timing. If a large invoice lands while a major deal sits in approvals, even very successful households feel stress and start juggling to protect the brand and the balance sheet at the same time. The irony runs down the middle. The original pitch for leaving the fold was autonomy, freedom to choose projects, define boundaries, and live beyond palace choreography. That resonated with audiences tired of rigid ritual, but the add-on, the continued use of title and aura, never stopped tugging at the narrative. If you claim independence while keeping the spotlight that independence rejects, critics call it a double act. Whether that's fair depends on your view of modern monarchy, but the debate is now undeniably public and the stakes are no longer theoretical. For supporters of the legislative push, the motto is straightforward: public labels belong with public service. For supporters of Harry, the counter motto is just as clear: personal reinvention shouldn't be punished forever. While those two arguments clash on television, the tax ledger simply counts. Law is a debate, taxes are a calculator. That's why the financial piece lands harder, faster, and with far less romance than anything involving titles, crowns, or history. Calculators don't applaud, they total. So what are the realistic next steps? If the reported bill and 3-day window are accurate, the simplest play is to pay promptly, even under protest, to stop the meter. If items are disputed, lawyers and accountants haggle, interest gets computed, and a settlement replaces the chant. On the title front, nothing moves overnight. Bills can stall, committees edit, governments shift, and constitutional niceties make quick fixes rare. Yet the discussion itself changes reality by reshaping expectations among partners who pay attention to signals, not statements. Public opinion sits in the middle like a weather vane. Some polling has shown majorities ready to trim titles, some citing principle, others frustration. Jarninda. Crowds also swing fast. Audiences love accountability, but they also love a comeback that feels earned. If the next public move is grounded, less grievance, more craft, minds soften. People don't demand perfection. They want the same rules for everyone, applied with the same firmness and the same grace, without special shortcuts. Pressure, though, forces choices. Pay and move on, or fight and accept months of drip coverage. Embrace a post-title identity, or mount a political battle that keeps the question on every Chiron. Double down on celebrity, or pivot to quieter, value-first work that proves range. None of those paths is easy. All of them are possible. The only impossible option is doing nothing while the calendar advances and the interest line grows every day a letter sits unanswered. The loneliest piece may be institutional distance. The palace seems unlikely to intervene after such a public split, and that tracks with earlier signals. Allies and friendly media are careful when every update detonates online. Friends go quiet while the temperature is high. In calmer seasons, that space feels like freedom. In loud seasons, it feels like exile. That dissonance is part of the price of reinvention in a world that records every twitch and click and then argues about it in the comments. There's a larger lesson humming underneath all the noise. Institutions move slowly until they snap awake. For years, the idea of adjusting titles lived in think pieces and pub chats. Then it edged into formal debate. For months, money talk hovered as rumor. Then a due date arrived and became the story. Procedure doesn't care about personality. It doesn't hate or adore, it proceeds. When it proceeds, narrative must catch up or get run over by letters, reminders, and a very punctual calendar. The good news is that procedure doesn't care about doom either. Satisfy the bill, clarify structures, and oxygen flows back into the room. People remember military service, charity visits, and flashes of humor. They start to grade on a curve again, but the work must match the memory. Audiences reward value over volume and substance over spectacle. Deliver that, and the stickiest hashtags evaporate as quickly as they appeared in the timeline. If there's a path that works, it probably looks painfully ordinary. Spreadsheets, phone calls, a calendar full of meetings that never make social media, a season of no comment, and a finished project that arrives on time and surprisingly unroyal. That isn't glamorous, but it's how storms pass. The spotlight loves upheaval, the audience loves quality, and quality is built in rooms without cameras or crowds by people who care about getting the details right. Until then, the story writes itself. Lawmakers will keep talking, the tax clock will keep ticking, and the internet will do what it always does. Cheer, jeer, remix, and forget, sometimes in the same afternoon. The person at the center has a simpler list: prove the numbers, decide what the name means, then act as if that decision matters every day without a script to lean on or a crest to hide behind when the next headline hits. In the end, the question isn't whether a word stays in front of a surname or how fast a transfer hits an account. It's whether a man who once symbolized an institution can build credibility without it, and whether an audience that loved the fairy tale will accept a reality that is stricter, duller, and more human. Maybe that's the only path that leads to peace. Not a throne, not a crest, not a camera, just a person who owes what they owe, earns what they earn, and respects the rules that bind everyone. If that's where this breaks, today's heat becomes tomorrow's footnote. If it doesn't, the questions sharpen, and the next notice, legal, political, or cultural, arrives on schedule. Either way, the message from London to California lands with unmistakable clarity. If you want the privileges that come with duty, do the duty. If you want the freedom that comes with privacy, live private. And if you try to stand outside the rules, be ready when the rules push back, loudly and in public.